Hey guys, and welcome to today's live stream. This is going to be quite a big one, and the new thing is I'm going to give you the practice file which I'm going to use in this live stream. So make sure to check out the link in a chat, or if you're watching this directly on Behance, the file is already attached there. Hey everybody in the chat, and one thing to note, if you want to follow me on Behance, make sure to head on over to behance.net/webdonut. It's my business name page right there instead of Alex on Design, but nevertheless, I'm the one who is posting content there all the time. And recently I just posted a long presentation for my Inception design system. And speaking about Inception design system, if you want, you can get it at inceptiondesignsystem.co. You can check out the previous live streams about what it is, and you can also check that presentation to see what it is and how it can benefit your work. Also, if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's Alex on Design on YouTube, and I upload videos every single week there about Adobe XD, UI UX design, design tips and resources, and so much more. So without any further ado, let's get started. And I'm getting notifications about the Behance. So thank you everybody who is following me there right now. And once again, because I didn't mention it, if you want to check out my courses, practice files for all of my YouTube tutorials that I've done so far, make sure to head on over to alexondesign.co, and all of the practice files, courses, digital design products, including the design system, everything is located right there. Now, before we get started with today's tutorial, it is going to be a long one. Let me quickly check the chat. And hey, everybody who is watching and who is joining me on the chat today. Let's get started. And first things first, I'm going to show you what we're going to do today. Once again, it's going to be quite a long one, but I wanted to condense all of it into one single live stream. If you don't have the time, then you can go back to this live stream later. It is going to be recorded later, and you can watch it at any point if you want to. So here is the design which we are going to create for today. It's a car configurator page, and you can click on these arrows to rotate the car in real time. You can hear me clicking, hopefully. And when you rotate it to whichever angle that you want, then you can click the colors, and then you can change all of these colors on click. And when you're happy with your colors, then you can check out the trim. And here I have just two options: midnight trim, which basically deletes this chrome trim outside, and I'm going to talk in just a second how I did it. And we have this default chrome trim. Then we have the wheels. So we have these default wheels, we have the sport wheels and avant-garde wheels. And when we are done with that, we can go back to contact sales, print our specification, and book a test drive for this vehicle. Here we have the price, starting price, and shipping charge separately. So just a note, here we have a slight little hover effect. And when I click there, it's going to pop in this page, which is basically the overall order. So we have save specification. You can click there to save it to your profile, continue to payment if you want to proceed with your specification, and back to configurator. For this particular video, I'm sticking with all of these basic settings, but if you want to, you can check out some additional settings. So for example, you can see right here that we have wheels which are default, color which is midnight, so it's default, exterior trim is chrome. So you can play around with these settings and just simply adjust the pricing right here and adjust the overall end price right here. To go back to the previous page, I'm going to click back to configurator, and it's going to take me right here. And if I want to select and start all over again, I can click right here. So that's it for the project file for today. Hi Femi. Hi Usman, glad to see you here, and thanks Usman. Thanks Femi for your support. And I'm going to close this, and this is basically your practice file. So once again, you can access this practice file directly on Behance. If you're watching there, if you're watching on YouTube, there is a link in the chat. Scroll up and you're going to get this practice file. Before we get started, a quick note about this practice file. This car is taken from Envato Elements, and I'm going to show you the page. So here is that page. This is a 3D model of the car, and you can actually click right here to rotate it. You can put it in any position that you want, and this is basically what I've done. So if you want to use these images, so let me minimize this. If you want to use these images, then you will have to license this for commercial use and for client use, but for learning purposes it's allowed to use this. I checked the license, and you can use it to basically follow along this live stream, and you can use it to practice all of these transition techniques that we're going to use in just a second. But you're not allowed to use it in your portfolio, you're not allowed to use it in your client work unless you register it first, because this is not just one item, it is one car. But basically how I used this angle first: downloaded this angle, licensed it, then moved it like this, downloaded this angle, moved it like this, and so on and so forth. So that's why we have all of these angles right here. So let's quickly dive into what I created here. If I select here, you can see we have the angles, then below that we have the colors, we have the exterior trim, we have the wheel options, so these are the options for the wheels applied, and finally we have the wheels and the interior, which we are going to use for that section at the top. So let's get started. As I explained how I created these, but let's dive a little bit closer about how I created these, because this car only comes in this black color. Basically I just took it into the Photoshop because I downloaded it as PNG, so it has a transparent background. Basically just selected this shape and used the color selector inside of the Photoshop, applied the color and played around with all of these different shades of colors, and I think it came out really nicely. But the trouble is with this PNG, you can see that the shadow right here is just a bit darker than it is right here, because I was playing around with these colors even though I selected it. So just keep that in mind. It's not a big deal, it's not a huge deal breaker or anything, but just so you can know. Next, for this exterior trim, basically anything which is chrome I selected, I blacked out and called it midnight black. And here we have the wheel options. So basically this is the wheel, this is with this option, this is with this option, and once again these are the wheels from Envato Elements, but you can find any wheels online, it doesn't really matter as long as you remove the logo, so you cannot be basically liable by any car manufacturer for that matter. And speaking about this car is actually real, it's called Lucid Air, and it's in the production at the moment. But as you can see, as per Elements as a requirement, there are no logos here, there are no logos here. So basically this person created this as a 3D model for all of us to use. Finally, this interior is just there for the placeholder. We're not going to tackle any interior design because it's just going to take too much time for us to do. So let's get started. First things first, I'm going to select all of these like so, and I'm going to hit copy, then jump into my artboard and hit paste inside, just so that I can paste them in, and hopefully it is pasted. Yes, it is. So all of it is in this one huge group. So let's organize them a bit better. So I'm going to move my angles right here in the center and position them like this. Then I'm going to select all of them and make sure that they are in the center like so. And finally I'm going to move them back into position like this. Then we are going to move to the colors. I'm going to select all of my colors and nudge them a little bit. Perhaps I was supposed to do this the other way around, but it doesn't matter. So let's group them to the center. Let's position it like so, somewhere around here, and we're going to deal with positioning in just a second. Then we have the exterior trim, so let's select these two options. There we go. Let's position them in the center like this. Let's put them outside, exterior trim. So let's actually position them like this, because I'm going to put everything in the center in just a second. Then we have wheel options. So these are the images with wheel options applied. Here they are. So let's nudge them into place here. Let's position everything in the center once again and move it like this. And finally we have the wheels, and these wheels are going to be smaller, so let's actually get rid of them for now because we don't need them, as well as the interior, because I can take them from here. These are just going to be a placeholder right here at the bottom, so they don't really matter at the moment. So first things first, let's group these, let's organize them like so. So I'm going to position basically all of them in the center of my artboard just to make sure that they are located where they should be. I'm going to then ungroup this, and for the angles I'm going to come right here, and you're going to notice for this particular live stream we are going to have a lot of repetition. I'm going to hide all of these elements like this, basically just leave the number one color. Then I'm going to nudge these colors to the top, just so I can align it. I don't know if you can see it, but just like this, perhaps. See, something like this. So if I hide and show my colors, let's see if we are there, perhaps one up, maybe. Yeah, one up. Yeah, something like that. I can move the colors down. Then let's jump to exterior trim, position it up and show it. So let's see, like this. Yeah, I think that's fine. Chrome pack. Yeah, let's position them right here actually. And now nudge it up. Like so. Perhaps two down. Maybe one down. You are going to notice this because of this shadow which I mentioned, so we are going to have that nudge. And finally, wheel options, let's deal with them right now. So let's nudge this up a little bit, like so. Something like this, and let's now use, let's see, colors, wheel options, exterior trim, and position them like this. And now see what we have. Yeah, I think that's perfect. And let's now group and organize them. Let me quickly check the chat. So hi everybody, once again, glad to see you here. Hope the music is not too loud and hopefully you can hear me. So let me check the original project actually, just to see how I structured everything. So first things first, I'm going to actually put the wheels in, like so. I can hit Control C and position them in my artboard right around here. There we go. Next, I'm going to scale them down something like this for now, and I'm going to hide them out of the way because I'm going to use them a bit later. And also I'm going to use this car interior like so. I'm going to put it into place and scale it all the way down to something like this perhaps. So first things first, let's hide it for now and let's create the circle which is going to go around. So let's lower the opacity of all of these things, so just that we have angles inside. So first things first, I'm going to create sort of ellipse right here, something like this. There we go. I'm going to nudge it in the center like that. And for the dimensions, let me see what I used in my original example. So 1621s with 213 like that. And of course, I'm going to nudge it all the way to the back and I'm going to move it up to somewhere around here perhaps. And we're going to see in just a second what we have. It's in the center and I'm going to call it floor ellipse. And just to save myself a bit of time, I'm actually going to right click and copy and right click and paste appearance. So this is the appearance of the original circle which I created. And if I click right here and hide myself just so you can see it better, what we have is we have this linear gradient. So we here F1, F1, F1 with 0% opacity, and it goes up. And here we have this one, which is DE, 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 and it's at 100% opacity, and it goes right here. So all the way down, extended a bit from this circle, from this floor ellipse. And what we lack right here is the background image. So let's deal with that. If you switch right here to your assets panel, you can see this background image. Drag and drop it in the center, and I'm going to position it here. And I'm also going to move it all the way to the back. So there we go. Now we have a bit of distance, a bit of nicer setting, if you want to call it. So here we have the background blur. We have the amounts of 30, 15, 11. So you can check that in your practice file if you want to. And basically that's it. That's how I want to structure this page. Before I move on, I want to hit Control C, click on this artboard name, Control V to paste it in. And there we go. So now we have two of them. We have this one here as well. And we're going to play with it in just a second when we actually get to this page. But first, we have a lot of work to do right here. So first things first, let's start with the text actually, because I want to see the spacing between these two items for the exterior and the interior. and then the car below, and then all of these elements below that. So let's start with the text. So first things first, hit T, and I'm going to type in exit configurator, like so. And here I have my H, let's see, 16. And let's see if I can use that color. No, I'm going to use this color actually. Or H2. It's much better, I think, because it's going to be visible against this background, because the whole point here was to create something which is really minimal. And let's nudge it, let's say, for example, 40. And let's keep it at 90 from here. Yeah, I think it's going to work just fine with 90 and 40. And now let's actually copy it. And let's move it right here. So something like this, and call it exterior configuration or configurator. Like this. And then duplicate it. No, or actually no, let's delete it for now because I want to create that card. So let's start with that one. So I'm going to actually use my rectangle tool, do something like this, and then move it right here. There we go. And I'm going to give it the size, so 228 with 100, for example. And for the corner radius, let's go with something nice and small with 5. And for the border color, I'm going to use this color, which is this main color. And finally, right here, let's position the text a bit better. So I'm going to nudge it in the center, nudge it here, and then move it up 10 pixels, something like this. Then I'm going to hit Ctrl D to duplicate this shape, and I'm going to nudge it just a little bit, something like this, like so, because this is going to be my image mask. So image placeholder, and this rectangle is going to be selector BG, like so. So this image placeholder doesn't need to have any border. And now what you can do is basically select this image, Control C, and drag it right here inside, Control V, and then adjust it, change its size. And to speed things up just slightly, I have all of these images in my folder. So I'm basically just going to take them from there and just drag and drop this image right here inside, just to save a bit of time. But as I said, you can scale it and position it however you want. I'm going to nudge it just a bit and move it just slightly to roughly around here to look like it's in the center of this placeholder. And finally, now that we've done that, let's group this. So selector, image, and this exterior text, and let's see, group it and call it exterior configurator, like this. And now let's position that in the group, more group, and I'm going to call it selectors, like so. Then I'm going to put the stack right here, select this one, Control D, call this interior configurator, like this, change this text. There we go. Then I'm going to select my background, remove the border, and lower the opacity to 30%, because just to show that this is selected and this isn't. Then I'm going to select my image, jump back to my image folder, and drag the image of this interior, double click inside of my mask, and simply adjust it in size, position it to be roughly in the center to somewhere around here. I think it works just fine. And there we go. Now that we've done that, I'm going to go back to my selectors and select the distance of 40, for example, just to increase the scale and the look and the feel of it. Then I'm going to make sure that this is in the center, position this in the center, and now we can start playing around with this color, with this car. So what this tells us is that this is selected because it already has 100% opacity for the background color. It has the rounded rectangles and the color selected for the border, so border color. So it clearly shows that this is selected. It's 51 from the top, so let's actually move that to be 1 pixel up, so it's 50, something like that. And I think it's going to work just fine. Now I'm going to actually remove this interior from here so it doesn't confuse me, and then I'm going to select every single thing below this selector and exit configurator, so all of these things except for background, and I'm going to nudge it all the way to here, for example, somewhere around there, and then we can play around with the position even more, so let's say roughly around there or something like that. Then what I'm going to do actually is use one of these cards to save myself a bit more time. So Control C, there we go. I'm actually going to jump below, Control V. There we go, Control V, and move it right here. And then what I'm going to do is actually play around with it. So first things first, I'm going to call this selector or colors. Like this. Then I'm going to get rid of my image because I don't need it anymore. And then finally, I'm going to write right here colors, but just make sure that this text is centered. So colors, there we go. We are still 10 from the bottom, which is fine. And then what I'm going to do is actually, let's see, change this. So selector BG, it can stay like it is. So let's go with 100 by 100. This, and then I'm going to move this in the center like so. Now, because we have all of these icons prepared right here, I'm going to select my color right here and make sure it's in the center. There we go. And I'm going to make sure it's evenly distributed. So if you hold your Alt or Option on Mac, you can select and see where you are with your icon. So let's see, 9, 10. So roughly around there. Make sure to position it. There we go. Icon goes to the top, colors, and then selector BG. Now that we have that, what we can do is we can put this, so Control G, put this in a separate group, make sure to create a stack, and then call this, let's see, selectors. Like so, selectors. And then I'm going to make 2 more copies. The second one is going to say trim. And this third one is going to say wheels, like this. Then I'm going to select my trim icon, sorry, my color icon, and replace it with the trim icon. Because it's a component, just drag and drop it. It's going to replace it, and then make sure to position it in the center like this. And then do the same for this one. Simply use this wheels icon, like so. There we go. And now that that's completed, what we can do is just rename them. So this is going to be trim, and this is going to be wheels, like so. And finally, I'm going to make sure to put a distance in of 60, snap this in the center of our page, and move it just a little bit more down, like so. Then I'm going to move it just below to roughly around here, just below our floor ellipse, because there we need to create that circle. So actually, no, let's position this upwards, because I want to be able to select them, because if I position them down below my images are going to obscure. Of course, you can go ahead and crop these images if you want to, but I didn't want to bother too much, because if you crop them down too much, it's going to deal with the shadows, and I wanted to have exactly the same size for all of them for alignment purposes, as you just saw. So let's now move on and create that circle. And for the circle itself, let's see, so perhaps we can call it navigator or something like that. Let's see. So let's create a circle. Let's get rid of the border. And for the size, let's go with 70 by 70. Make sure we are in the center, and make sure to position it roughly around here so that it meets this line of our floor. And now we can move these down just a little bit, and we're going to play around with the positioning a bit later. So perhaps something like 30, I think it's going to work just fine. There is still enough of space. Let's call this navigator. like so. And finally, I'm going to add these two. So we have right arrow and we have a left arrow, like so. I'm going to select them, move them like so, and let's organize them a bit. So perhaps your 10 in. I think 10 is good enough. So just line it, hit shift and a right or left arrow key. And let's see, maybe we can move them in the center like this. And finally, what I want to do is create my tap points. So simply create a rectangle like this and call it left tap point. And I'm going to duplicate it, move it right here, and call this right tap point. There we go. Because I want to be able to tap on these once I actually start with my prototyping. You're going to notice that in just a second when we actually get to the prototyping stages of this design. But you need to have these if you don't want to have any confusion with your components. Here we have a bunch of different components, a bunch of different component states. You're going to see in just a second what we're going to do. But for now, just make sure to use left and right tap points. It's going to be much simpler to achieve this result which I showed you previously. So let's now move on, and I'm going to lower down the opacity of them and then select basically all of them and call it navigator like this and move it perhaps right here. Like that, I think it works just fine. We are going to deal with this in just a second, so we can call it, for example, top, just so that we can have it out of the way. Now that we have this and we have all of this, what I can do is select one of these. So let's say colors, and I can move it right here, Control V, position it just below. So let me actually check in my original design how the distances between these. So let's see, something like 40 I think should work just fine. Yeah, let's go with 40. So I'm going to nudge it to here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And I'm going to start give them names. And before I do, I want to put this in a group, this text. And I want to call it text, like so. And finally, I want to position this in a stack like this. Then I want to duplicate this, position it down, and this second one I want to lower down in size. So let me check, for example, 14, there we go. And I'm going to use this color, and because I didn't create it, when you select it, apply this color, simply click right here and it's going to create this lower size, 14, because that's the one it slipped me, I forgot. So we have 10 right here between these two, and I think we are doing just fine. Then what we're going to do is put this and apply padding. But before we do, I want to extend this down to maybe 10. Let me check. Yeah, I think it's good. So 10, so it's going to have the same padding, and for this color I'm going to actually get rid of it, and I'm going to create a circle to be able to apply my colors for each and every circle. So I'm going to create a circle which is 40 by 40, so something like this, so 40 by 40. And for the circle I want to move it to be, let's say 16 or something like this, just so it gives me a bit more space to the top. And finally, let's see, from the selector, I want to extend it just a bit up to maybe 14. So it gives me a bit more space right here to the top. So this is going to be our midnight. And to save ourselves a bit of time, I'm going to copy this gradient and apply it to here. And I'm going to show you what I'm doing. So basically, this is the gradient. And if I select the lighter point, you can see it's right here. If I select my darker point, you can see it's right here. So darker is just right here and it goes in this direction. So for example, 45 degrees or something. And the lighter point is going to stay right here all the time. So this is going to be our midnight. Like this, I'm going to hit Control G, call these colors. And before I move on any further, I want to call this free, because this is going to be our midnight. and it is going to be free. So finally, before we move on, I just want to check. So let's see, selector is 100 with 131. Okay, so let me use these, make sure that they are in the center. So let's see, I want to remove the padding just for a second. Make sure to put these in the center like this. Make sure to check my values, 17, 14, 10, and then make sure to select this one and go with 16. There we go. And now bring back the padding. So it's going to stay like this for the rest of these colors. Once again, we are 40 here, we are 25 here, and I think we are good with this. So let me check my original design. Yeah, I think 40 and 25 is going to work just fine for this example. Perhaps we can nudge this up and down a little bit. We are going to see in just a second. But for now, let's just focus on these colors. So I'm going to move this just below my selectors because it's going to be there. So let's use my colors. And I'm going to put this in a stack, as I said. And I'm going to create, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. And I'm going to use my colors and put them in, let's say, 40. Check my original design, but I think 40, yep, 40, that's going to work just fine. Make sure they are in the center, 40 from here, and perhaps we can nudge them up even more. So actually, let's select all of it like this. There we go. And nudge them just a little bit. So that's 20, 45, 1, 2, let's see, actually, colors. We are something like 48 or something. So let's actually do it like this. It's much complicated, much more complicated with these images at the top. So let's do it like this. 2, 3, 4. So I'm certain that now we are at 40. We have plenty of space here. We have plenty of space here. So everything is going to work out just fine. So here I'm going to call this glacier. And before I move on, actually, let's remove this from the stack. And let's remove the padding. So it's not going to affect all of these. So glacier. And actually, you know what? We can select all of them like this, and now remove the padding altogether. So now it's going to stick to the center. There we go. And this option is going to be $1,800 for the color. This is going to be mint, and it's going to be 1,800 as well. This next one is going to be oak, and that's going to be a bit more expensive. So that's going to be 2,500. This is going to be wine. It's going to be, let's see, 2,500 as well. And finally, what we're going to do here is call this one royal. And this one is going to be $2,800, for example. So now I'm going to do the same thing. So just basically go right here, select copy, right click and hit paste appearance. Like this. For this glacier, once again, it's exactly the same story. I'm just moving down right here, and you can see I'm just picking from the colors of my cars right here. You can do that too if you want to, but here is the color and you can use it. So 958F8C. If you're following, you can use the same color. If you're watching this a bit later, then you can pause the video and use exactly the same color so that we don't lose too much of our time. Then I'm going to move to the next one. Right click, paste appearance, and let's first rename all of these. So this is going to be glacier, because I want to make sure that I'm using the same colors, same color codes. This is going to be mint. Call this one mint. And finally, for the mint, if I select this, so white doesn't change, and if I click right here, it's 45746E. So 45746E. Once again, you can pause the video and you can select that one if you want to. Then we can move on to this next one, which is oak. Now let's rename it. And you can hit tab if you want to go down to rename your next layer or to edit your next layer however you want. Let's go and actually not paste, but paste appearance. And for this one, let me check this brown one. It's 7D5C4A. So 7D5C4A. If you want, you can use that color as well, or you can play around with just the image on top. You can show the image of this particular color, then you can pick whichever one you want, and then you can put it right here. So however you choose to work with these, it's completely fine. Let's now select this one, paste appearance, call it wine. I'm going to call this one wine as well. And for this color, if you want exactly the same results, I use 9A4255. 9A4255. And let's call it wine. There we go. And finally, we have royal, which is going to be a blue color. So, and let me select it right here. I'm going to hit copy, then come back to here, paste appearance. And if I select it, just to show you, it's 6E85A8. So 6E85A8. And once again, you can pause the video and come back to it if you want to. So there we go. We are at 60 for all of them. We are in the center, 40 from here, 40 from here. Everything is fine. So now that the colors have been created, let's now go back and let's actually, let me check my original example. So I want to switch to my default state, and let's now work with the trim next. So let's deal with that. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, just use these two so I can duplicate my colors and call it exterior trim. Like this. Then I'm going to get rid of all of them. In my exterior trim, I'm going to have two options. So I'm going to have midnight, and instead of glacier, sorry, I'm going to use chrome. There we go. So for this chrome, and I'm going to hide my colors so they are not distracting. And let's put them in a stack so I can quickly move their places. Then remove them out of the stack, remove the padding because we don't need it. Snap it in the center. There we go. So this glacier is actually going to be called chrome, and it's going to say free because it is included in the price. Then midnight is going to cost you $1,800. There we go. We're going to keep this as it is, and for the chrome, let me actually check. I think it's exactly the same. So copy. Let's see, paste appearance. Yeah, it's just a bit different. So this darker color is going to be 80, 80, 80, and it's moved just slightly out of the way. So I'm going to rename this to Chrome for later exporting. If you want to share this with your developers, of course, you should always rename your layers accordingly. So we are now going to play around with these. So things first, for this midnight, I'm going to remove the border, hit 3 on my keyboard. To lower down the opacity, basically do the same like I did previously. Hide this because it's done. Go back to my colors and then do exactly the same thing for all of them except for the midnight because it's included and it is by the default. So let's start one by one. So I'm going to select this one, hit 3, select this one, remove, hit 3, this one, remove, hit 3 on my keyboard, obviously. This one, remove, hit 3. There we go. This one, remove, hit 3. Now that that's done, I have to do the same for all of them on top. Why? Because I want to have them all be at exactly the same state for us to get started when we start prototyping. This and remove the border. There we go. Like so. I want to be for them to be like this, and when I hide my colors like so, everything is going to be stationary. So you have to select one of them in order for you to be able to use any one of these options right here at the bottom. So let's see what we are left. We are left with wheels. So let me check and do the wheels. So let me actually duplicate my exterior trim, Control D, call this wheels. So, and for this one, I'm going to call it default, like this. Then this one is going to be sport, and it's going to say 680. That, and let's call it sport. Let's call this first one default. And finally put them in a stack because I need just one more. And this third one I'm going to call avant-garde. To copy the text and position it right here. There we go, with capital A. And this option is going to be 950. There we go. And finally, remove them out of the stack, remove the padding, make sure I position them in the center. There we go. So everything works out just fine. Of course, in my example, these two have exactly the same width as this one. So if I nudge it right here, you can see it still has, but the spacing right here at the top is greater because I didn't want to intrude too much spacing for all of these options at the bottom. So I think they are going to work just fine for now. Let me hide the wheels and let's see what we can create next. So I can move on to these right here. So let's actually select our text from here, Control C, and let's position it right around here, Control V. There we go. So for these options on the side, and if I launch this prototype, show you what I mean. So this prototype right here, so when you click any one of these, it's going to pop out from the side. So first things first, I'm going to say right here, contact sales. Then I'm going to make a duplicate, call this print your specification. So, and finally move another one and call this book a test drive. There we go. So for now, what I'm going to do is just see with my icons. So I'm going to drop my icons in, but for some reason I didn't include them. Sorry about that. What you can do is use these ones as placeholders, and I'm going to show you a plugin in just a second. So if I select these, you could test drive, just paste them right here. And they went out on me. There we go. Just nudge them because they are tiny, and let's position them like so. Align them like this. Position in 20 right here. So given 20 pixels, and what you can do is go to your plugins and use this plugin called Icons for Design. You can click right here and find it. So Icons for Design, and then you can type in icon name, for example, phone, press enter or return, and it's going to give you all of these different phone icons. So we have this smartphone, which kind of resembles this one. Then what you can do is type in PDF. Then you have this option, this or this. This one, I think it's exactly the same as this. Just this one has PDF written inside, this one doesn't, but I think this one is even better. And then jump in and type in car, for example, press enter, and you have a bunch of these different options, so you can choose whichever one you want. So for example, you can go with this one, or I don't know, scroll down and find some other one. So basically, icons for design. Sorry if I didn't include this one, these icons in, but I obviously forgot to include them inside. What I'm going to do is just nudge these, put them in the center, and then group all of them like so. So this is going to be book test drive. This next one is going to be print your spec, and finally this one is going to be contact sales. Like so. Then I'm going to group them, and let me check in my original example what I did for the spacing. I think I select them at 40. Yep. So let's see, this we can call side menu. Like so. And what I can do is nudge them, but before I do, let me put them in a stack. They are at 40, which is great. So everything is where it should be. Once again, remove them from the stack, remove the padding because we don't need it at the moment. I'm going to nudge them right around here so the text just goes outside of my artboard, it's not visible, and I'm going to place them in the center. Then I'm going to deal with this text right here before we move on to the actual prototyping phase of this design. But before I do that, I forgot to include my wheels right here. So let's select our wheels and let's bring our wheels where they are. So here, I think, yep. And I'm going to select them, right click, ungroup, default. I'm going to select and put them right here. Just check no stack, that's fine. So I can select each of them, hit Control X and select my wheels folder, drop them right here, and then position them from here inside of each particular folder. So first things first, let's make sure they are all in the center. You can click here and here to make sure they are all the same size. Then I can nudge them right here just to make sure that everything looks right. Something like this, I think it's fine. There we go. And now that that's set, you can open up the default and sport folders. So let's move the sport to the sport. You can hold shift and right arrow, make sure it's in the center, then use avant-garde and position it right here. Same story, make sure it's in the center. For some reason I put it in the sport folder, so let me fix that. I was wondering why it wasn't snapping into position. Then I'm going to get rid of this midnight circle, this circle, and this chrome circle here. And I'm going to put this into default folder, make sure it's in the center, like so. And finally, for the distances, it's 13 and 10, so it's fine. This is going to be a bit different because this one is just a pixel bigger, 9 and 12, there we go. Now the wheels are finished. I can lower down this, and as I said, work on this text once again. So if I select my exit configurator text once again, because I'm a bit lazy to type, what I'm going to write is first edition, because I'm not going to use the car's real name. So first edition, I'm going to select it and give it 26 bold. There we go. You have this option already. Control D, and I'm going to use this as 16, but not bold, but regular, this one, and call it starting at, say, 167.000. And for that distance, I'm going to use 20. This. See, perhaps I can use H2. There we go. Control D, 20 again. And let me actually select this, Control V, ship in chart separately, and now let me use this one. So we are at 20 everywhere. And finally, let's deal with this button. I'm going to create my rectangle somewhere around here. And let's see what I can do with it. I can give it 264 with 54. I think it's going to work just fine. And let's see, 6 for the corner radius is going to be good enough. Then I'm going to duplicate this one, for example. Put it here and make sure to position it above. This is going to be my BT and BG, so button background. Make sure to snap it in the center. There we go. And for the text inside of our button, let's see view, summary. Because once again, this is going to take you to that next page, which you're going to design in just a second once we actually get through with all of this. Control G and call this, let's say, BTN or main BTN. BTN, there we go. And I'm going to actually get rid of this border. I don't need it. So now we are with white color at 100% opacity. You can see it here. So let me hit Control K to create this as a component, and I'm going to create a new state. Sorry, not a new state, but actually hover state. So click right here, go to the hover state, call it hover. Inside of the hover, all I want to do is keep it like that, but in my default state, I want to keep it at 30% or 40. Let's go with 40. Then go back to our hover, select it, hit 0 on our keyboard to go to 100%. So if I switch back to my default state and preview this design, if I hover, you can see how it looks like. So it goes from 40% to 100%. It just gives it this nice and minimal look and feel to our design, which I think it works quite well. What we're going to do is nudge this here, put this here, starting at 167, so goes here, shipping here. There we go. And I'm going to call this information. information or car information or whatever. So car information. There we go. And I'm going to put this in a stack once again. Make sure everything is at 20. Get out of the stack, get out of the padding, because I want to reuse this text over and over again. And finally, what I want to do with this is make sure to position it to be, let's say, 40 or 50. Go with 50 here, and let's go with 50 down here as well. Something like this, I think it is going to work well. Maybe 60 and then 60. Let me check my colors. Actually, let's line them now with colors, so like this. So if people are at the color selector, it's all going to line up in the line of sight so they can check it. So 60 and 40 down, and I think it's going to work fine. Or perhaps because this one is, let's check 40. Let's see. Let's go with 50. You can decide on your own if you want to, but basically that's going to be it. Now, finally, what we can do before we move on to the next stage of our design, before we move on to actually creating all of these transitions, because those transitions, animations are going to take the most out of this design, is actually go ahead and create this page. This is going to be our overlay page, and our overlay page basically is going to just overlay on tap. So once we actually click anywhere, it's going to overlay. So it is going to contain animation to that particular page, but it's not going to be anything too dramatic. Basically, just when you click this view summary button that we just created, it's going to pop it into place and it is going to position it there. So how we are going to do that? Well, first things first, let's select this image, number one, because as I said, I'm going to use that one. Position it in the center and then nudge it all the way to here, like so. Then I'm going to actually use all of this. So let's use everything, because we are going to need everything. Control V, make sure to position it right on top. There we go. Now ungroup all of it. Then I'm going to nudge this down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure we are at 40, like so. And let's see for the distances. So maybe I can go with something like 50. Like so. Control D, make sure I'm in the center. Control D, make sure I am right here to the right side. Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I am at 50 from here as well. So this one is going to say save specification. And then we can select it, Control A, Control C, go to the hover state and change this text right here. So now when we actually hover, it's going to say this exact same thing. And finally, let's deal with this right one. And it is going to say continue to payment. Select all of it, switch to hover right here. There we go. So continue to payment. And if we quickly check this out, so view summary, it works. Save spec, it works. And continue to payment, it works as well. So now let's deal with this text. And before you do, I can actually hit save and check the chat real quick, because I wasn't there before. So let me see. Damian, nice idea for the website. Thanks, man. And Osman, cool. Hello, I'm from Somali. And I can design how to find the job as a junior web designer. This live stream is in English, so perhaps you can check with me and go to my Facebook page or reach out to me via Twitter so I can answer that question. And Ferry says, newest Adobe ambassador. Thanks, man. I just became Adobe XD ambassador, but this means for you, as I said, is a lot more content on the way, all about Adobe XD, and a lot more is going to be coming on the way. This is just the first part of this collaboration with Adobe, if we can call it that. I'm not working for them, but we are just collaborating on creating a bunch more content for you guys, which is going to hopefully elevate your UI UX game. So let's go back to our design, because we are already at 1 hour in, and I think that this is going to be 1.5 or maybe even 2 hours live stream. So I just warned you guys up front before this live stream started. So let's go back to our design. So as I said, we are going to continue with this text. And I'm going to first select this text, nudge it right to here. There we go. And I'm going to leave this as it is for now. And first things first, I'm actually going to, let's see, get rid of this text because I don't need it. And here for this one, I'm actually going to copy and paste information from my original design. It's much simpler that way, obviously. So let's hit Control D, position it down, and I'm going to use a bold for this one, like so. Position it right here. And this first one, I'm going to call it model. Then I'm going to hit Control D, move this right around here, call it first edition. So. And finally, let's see, maybe I can group them. Use this one, sorry, this one. So they are in the center, 16 for both of them. And let's now duplicate these, position them 20. Sorry. I think my voice just broke a little bit because I'm talking for 1 hour straight. But let's continue with this. So this is going to be called exterior trim. Like this. This is going to say Chrome. And I'm going to stick with the default options, but you guys can, of course, do it however you want and choose whichever one of these colors that you want. I'm going to position this to be right aligned, and I'm going to say included, like this. And now we can move these two just that here. And finally, I can call this one model. This is going to say exterior trim, Chrome, like this, and first edition. There we go. Now, so this, and this is going to be exterior trim. And model, and this text right here, so I can call this, for example, top text. There we go. And now what I can do, because we are at 20, I can actually group these two, Control G, and then create a stack. And let's see, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. Now this first one is going to be color. Call it that. Then this next one is going to be wheels. Below that, interior. And shipping. And instead of bold, I'm going to use this regular one. And finally, this is going to say total price. So shipping to your location, we are going to get rid of this one. And for the price, we are going to get rid of this one. Right here for the shipping, I'm going to say something like 8,500. And for the price, total price, first of all, I'm going to make sure this is bold, and I'm going to put it at 175,500. There we go. Now I'm going to just follow what I have inside of here. So this first one should say first edition. And all of these are going to say included. First edition obviously is exterior trim Chrome. Included, no, model first edition. So it can even say right here, or it can say right here. Just for this one, I'm going to actually go back and say included. So instead of the third line of text, it just has these two. So what I can do is close all of these and rename them appropriately. So let's call this one options list. So let's go with exterior trim Chrome. Color is going to say midnight. Wheels are going to be default. And interior is going to say something like Santa Monica or whatever. And there we go. This page is completed. What I can do next is put these and these. Let's see where we are with this. So we are at 43. So 1, 2, 3. Let's go with 40. And let's move these and make sure we are at 40, like so. And finally, I can nudge this right up to here. And there we go. We have our page completed. Let's check it out. And by the way, you can hit Control or Enter to go into the preview mode. You can see continue to payment, save spec, and view summary. Everything works as it should. Now, finally, what I want to do, I want to have this background a bit blurred. So what I'm actually going to do is jump into here. So I'm going to make sure to change it. So 30, 15, 11. Yeah, let's actually keep it. I'm not going to do anything because when we put all of this information, so let me group it just to show you. Control C, Control V. And when I preview this, you can see, because the background is already been blurred, you can see the traces of the color, the traces of the car, of these placements at the top. So everything is opaque, everything works as it should. So I think this is going to be good enough. Let's hit delete. And now comes the most tedious task, which is actually prototyping this thing. So what we have to do is start small. So I'm going to start with this side menu actually, because it's the smallest and the easiest one to deal with. So I'm going to do just that, like so. So first things first, I'm going to hit Control K on it to create the side menu component. Let me check in the chat. I hope you guys are doing good today, and thank you once again for being with me. So first things first, what I'm going to do is create 3 additional component states. So this first one is going to be sales. This next one is going to be from the default state, specification. So, and finally this third one, but sorry, not from this, but you have to select the default state if you want to be able to access it from any other state. It's going to be called test drive, like this. So let's go to the sales. Let me check the music. I think it works. Yep. So I'm going to sales, then I'm going to select my sales and select my icon. Click right here and apply this color, or you can go right here to apply this main color however you want. And then I'm going to jump in right here, hit 1, 2, 3, 4 or 20 maybe, yeah, like that. Then I'm going to go back to the default state, then go to my spec, select my spec, nudge it to 20, select my print icon, and then select this color. There we go. Go to the test drive and then do the same thing, because as I said, these 3 are the easiest one to hit. So 1, 2, 20. Select this one and basically just apply the color inside. Switch back to default and check. So sales, spec, test drive. So we did good. And now I can switch to prototype mode. And what I can do is when I select my sales, let's see. So when I select my sales and click, what I can do is use the tap, use the auto animate, then use ease out and 0.4 seconds. Then click print your spec. I'm going to do the same. So spec, and this is going to be for my test drive. Then I'm going to switch to my sales. So this is going to take me to default. This is going to take me to print. And this is going to take me to my test drive. Then I can switch to spec. You can see where this is going. So this is going to go to sales. This is now going to go to default state. Book a test drive is going to go to the test drive itself. And finally, let's switch down to test drive. So auto animate, this is going to be sales. This is going to be specification. And finally, this is going to be to my default state. And I give a note to Adobe XD team. about this just the other day. So you can see right here. So when I select this, you can just you're going to actually see this in just a second, because we're going to have a bunch of these different components in just a second. But for now, we just have default and we have 3 component states. And what I have to do is scroll down. So I just gave them a bit of feedback. Then just like in Photoshop, just like in Illustrator, just like in Lightroom, any other one of their tools, basically, you can click right here and drag this whole section down, which is going to expand and give you much more room so that you don't have to scroll, and it's going to be much faster to click between these states. Also, hopefully in the future, they're going to include this option, which is going to remember that for this particular default state, I have selected all of these transitions and states, and it's going to remember and use their AI just to apply that to all of these other states, so that we don't have to lose time like we are going to do today. And this live stream is going to go way above 2 hours. You're going to see that definitely. And thank you so much, everybody who is sticking with me through all of this time. So let's select our design, hit Control Enter to preview it. So this is our default state. When I click right here, for some reason it doesn't work. So let me, oh yeah, I have to connect them in the default state, obviously. So tap, let's go to sales. This is going to print your specs, so that's fine. So I connected that. I just forgot contact sales. So when I click there, you can see it goes straight to here, but I still have to click here to go out. So what we can do right here in this case is I did this for this particular reason, to show you how you can animate this transition. But if you actually want them to go, then perhaps you can click on the icon itself to be a tap point, or you can create that as a link and then it can take you externally. We are going to deal with hyperlinks in one of the other tutorials, which I'm going to create really soon in Adobe XD. But for now, as you can see, when I click right here, it just closes. So what's the point of this, you might be asking? Well, it's just to show you how to create it, but you can create a hyperlink here, for example, or you can click on the icon itself, because the icon changed the color, indicating that it can be clicked, or you can put that as a hyperlink to click and then book on their test website, for example. Then this PDF, maybe you can open up another tab in the browser, it can show you this PDF, and then you can download it straight from there. And finally, contact sales. Perhaps if you have, let's say, Viber, WhatsApp, or default phone option installed in your machine, maybe when you click there, it's going to actually put up the phone number of this dealer, let's say, or this manufacturer, and it's going to show you that phone number, and then you can click and call it there. Finally, we have this view summary, and we're going to prototype that actually right now, because we don't have anything to lose, basically. So view summary, I'm going to actually select this entire section. Or no, let's actually go right here, because now we have just a hover state. So I'm going to track it, deal like that. So tap, auto animate. Let me hide myself. What I'm going to do for this particular occasion is not going to use auto animate. I am going to use the tap, but I'm going to switch from auto animate to overlay. And you can see straight away what happens. So it's just going to overlay this entire artboard on this artboard. Then what we're going to use is use animation slide up, like so. We can use ease out or ease in out, even better. So it can use ease in and ease out of the animation. And 0.4, let's go with 0.6, which is just a tad bigger and longer. So when I preview this and click right here, it's going to overlay. And then when I click somewhere outside, it is going to close it, like you saw. So view summary, and then when I click right here, for example, it's going to transition back to its original state. So let me save that, check the chat, see how you guys are doing. Hello from Somali. I hope you guys are enjoying this live stream, and thank you so much for being with me today. So let's now move on and let's continue where we left off previously. So what I'm going to do is start the hardest part actually of this design, and I'm going to create the car configurator, which is going to contain all of these options inside. So first things first, what I want to do is create a separate components for these. So let's do that. First things first, we have the colors. So I'm going to actually use these colors. So I'm going to call it colors selector. And then I'm going to call this trim selector, finally wheels selector, like that. And now I have to basically drop them inside of each of these. And before I do, what I want is to create tap points for each of them. So let's actually position them inside. So I'm going to ungroup this for now. Then I'm going to jump inside my colors, for example, and I'm going to use my colors selector, hit Control X. Actually, no. Let me see. Yeah, you know what? Let's do it like this. So I'm going to select this, Control C, move it out, and I'm going to call this, let's see, colors tap point, like this. And I'm going to select this one, Control C, Control V, move it below and call it trim tap point. And then finally select this one, Control C, Control V, move it just below, call it wheels tap point. There we go. And now I can nudge them all down. So let's see, car information. Now comes the hard part where I actually have to organize all of these. So let's see, car information is this down below. Okay, so side menu and top. So let's organize that. And we are going to put them all right here, like so. So these tap points, I can hit 0 on my keyboard 2 times to lower down the opacity, because they don't have to be seen. They're just there for these purposes, just so that we can actually select them. Finally, what I'm going to do is select my navigator right here, Control C, and do the same thing, Control V, position that right here at the top, and call it navigator tap points. And why is that, you might be asking? Well, because I want to go outside of the color or the trim or the wheels back to my original state to be able to switch between all of these angles. So that's why I'm using navigator tap point, to be able to do just that. Let me hide myself so you can see it. So I'm going to lower down the opacity down to 0. It's there just for tapping purposes, just for the transition purposes, like so. So what we are going to do next is organize these a bit better. So I'm going to keep, let's see, the wheels at the top right here. Then I'm going to deal with exterior trim right here. Then I'm going to put the colors right here. And finally put the angles right here. So let's see, colors, angles. Let's see, navigator. Let's see how can we organize these. So these this navigator is going to go into the angles themselves. So let's now group these. So colors go with colors, wheels go with wheel options, exterior trim goes with exterior trim, and all of this is going to make sense in just a second. And then we have wheels selector, trim selector, and color selector. So all of them are going to go into their separate groups. So I know it's confusing for now, but it is going to make a lot more sense in just a second. So let's first things first, hide all of this like so. And I'm going to basically use these wheels, position them right at the top, show my wheels, and then show my wheel options, which are my images for my cars. So because the first one is default, which is this one, so these are the default wheels. And if I open up the wheel options, you can see default look is here, but these two should be hidden like so. So in the next one, when we click to sport, default look is going to be hidden and sport look is going to be shown, complementing that selection of ours. So wheel selection, wheels, and wheels selector. So wheel options, let's keep it like that. And what I'm going to do is actually select all of them. Let's see. So we have, maybe we can even organize this a bit better. Let's call it like this. So selector. Oh no, let's keep it. I'm not going to bore you guys too much and confuse you. So I'm going to group all of these. So once again, wheel selector, which is this one, wheels, which are these three at the bottom, and wheel options, which are these images at the top. So you can see default, sport, and avant-garde look. So I'm going to group these three and call it wheels, like this. And then I'm going to start by creating a component. So hit Control K for my wheels. In the default state, what I want is for my options to be visible. So I'm going to actually show, let's see, I'm going to show my wheels. So because these are wheels, I want to show these. So default, this is going to go to 100. Oops. But not the wheel tap point, but wheels themselves. So wheels selector, this is going to go to 100 and go back with the border color to indicate that this is selected. Okay, so wheels are selected. Now what we have to do is create additional states because we have sport and we have avant-garde. So I'm going to click new state, call it sport, then go back to my wheels. Wheel selector is going to stay the same, but wheels are going to change. So for the sport, now I'm going to bring that back to 100, border back, and then I'm going to select the default, remove the border, and I think we were at 30%. Yep, so select that one, hit 30%. So now the sport is selected. And what we have to do is switch this off and switch this on, like so. And then go back to the default state, click once again, new state, and call this one avant-garde. Something like that. And for that one, I'm going to select this one, hit 0, select this one. Of course, what you can do here is use check marks for all of these selections if you want to, but I'm just preferring this option with the outline because it shows quite nicely. So now we have avant-garde. So finally, what we need is we need to prototype these. So what we can do is we can switch to prototype mode. And let's see, let's start with the default state. So I'm going to go with wheels and select my sport, click right here. I'm going to use tap, I'm going to use auto animate. I'm going to go with easing none because I want this transition to happen immediately. And for the duration, I want to go with 0 seconds. So you can type in 0 2 times to go with 0 seconds. Why? Because I don't want any fading effect to take place because we have these bottom shadows as I just showed you. So if you start playing around with these easing, so easing out, snap or whatever, it's just going to interfere too much. I want this to happen instantly and I don't want to have any delay between my changes. I want to happen like this. So that's why I'm using easing of none and duration of 0 seconds. So it's going to happen in a jiffy. So then I'm going to select avant-garde, click on it, and then simply select the state avant-garde, easing none, duration 0, and if we click right here, this should go to sport, like that. So none, easing 0, okay, so this is avant-garde, this is sport, let me just check one more time, we are at wheels, okay, so go to sport, now select our default, click, and basically it's going to keep the same settings, just go back to default, click right here and go to avant-garde, there we go, and finally switch to avant-garde, and I'm going to select this to go to sport, like so, and finally this should go to default state, there we go. And now if I preview this, just to see if we got it right the first time. So here we are at the default, this is sport, this is avant-garde, And this is what I was talking about. So when I click right here, you can see the change happening immediately. So there is no delay, there is no switch, there is no fading, there is nothing. It just happens instantly. So that's what I want from these changes. And of course, we got all of the states right the first time, as we should. So let's close this, and I think wheels are now completed. So what we can do at this point is, let's see, I can hide my wheels. So go back to my design, hide my wheels, and then work with, let's see, exterior trim maybe. So let me actually hide all these in my original design, just not to confuse myself, like so. And then go to the exterior trim. Okay, so now that the wheels are done, let's go to the exterior trim, like so. And for the wheels, I just hit this. So let's go with the default state. Yeah, let's do it like that. And I'm going to create a master component in just a second, which is going to make additional changes to all of these components. So I know it doesn't make too much sense now, but just stick with me, and it's all going to make sense in just a moment. So here we have the exterior trim, and we have the trim, which is this. So our images. So let's go with like something like this. So trim images. So exterior trim. So actually I just replaced them. So trim images. And this should be exterior trim, like this. So what I want to achieve with this is exactly the same story. So where is this? This is trim. Trim images, trim selector. There we go. So right here, I'm going to use the trim tab point. Trim selector, because this is going to be selected. This is going to go to 100% and show the border color like this. I'm going to save this file just for the second. So here we have Chrome and midnight. Obviously, we are going to need just two states for this one. So let's see what's happening. Okay, so Adobe XD saved this file. So trim selector, exterior trim, which are these two, and trim images, which are obviously these images right here. So first things first, Chrome pack should be visible, midnight pack should not be visible. So just this one. And I'm going to select them, hit Ctrl+G, and call them exterior trim. Select it one more time. So just close a few things here and there, just so I can speed up my machine a bit, like this. So as I said, exterior trim, and I'm going to create it to be a component. So default state is going to be Chrome, and I just need one more. So I'm going to call it midnight, like so. In the midnight, for the Chrome, I'm going to get rid of this, lower down to 30, bring this to 100, and bring the border back like this. And finally, we need trim images. So Chrome pack should disappear, midnight pack should appear like this. And there we go. Now we just need to prototype him. Same thing like we did with the wheels. So in this one, in default state, all I need to do is select my midnight, go to midnight. So tap auto animate, none and 0%, because I want to keep the same settings as I did previously. Go to the midnight, select it back to go to the default state. Default, there we go. And now if I hit preview, click right here, you can see it happens instantly and it works as it should. Don't worry about not seeing this. As I said, we're going to fix it in just a second. And finally, let's now deal with the most boring one. So let me hide exterior trim. Then I'm going to use my colors selector, position it here, show my colors, and show my car colors. car colors. Maybe I can call it that, just so that we can differentiate what's been selected and what's not. In my car colors for the midnight, I just want it to be visible. So you can see when I click here, 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 and here, that now these shadows are much lighter, as they should be, because we have all of these different car options. So car colors, colors selector, colors, and car colors, which are these images at the top, or we can call it colors, color images, or car color images, whatever, just so that we know what everything is. So car color images, I can select them, hit Ctrl G, call them colors, and hit Ctrl K to create a component. Once again, this is going to be our default state, and for this one I need my selector at 100 and border to be brought back into place. So this is the default state. Next, I need to create first one, call it glacier. And what I can do is actually start by creating all of them. So I'm going to call this one mint. And you see the whole point how this is going to turn out. Oak. This next one is going to be wine. Back to default. This is going to be royal. And now let's actually apply the changes. So in the glacier, what I need is for this glacier to show up, border to disappear, border to disappear, and go back to 30%, like so. And I want car color, glacier to show up. There we go. Then I'm going to switch to mint. Mint is going to go to 100. This is disappearing. This is going to go to 30%. And for my colors, I'm going to show my mint like this. Then I'm going to select my oak. Do exactly the same thing. 30%. Car color images, show oak, hide midnight black. There we go. Wine. Do the same thing. And hide my midnight black. And finally royal. So bring this back to 100, like so. 30%, and finally bring this royal up like this. Finally, let's now switch to prototype and start prototyping. You get the whole point and you get the picture. This is the most boring bit, and this is why I said that this is going to take so much time, but I wanted to keep things condensed inside of this live stream. And if you're going to watch this on YouTube later, I'm going to maybe put the sections down in the bottom of the video so that you can switch to these sections if you don't want to be bothered with a particular section and you want just to switch to any one of these sections. So when I'm doing this, I'm actually going to jump in and crank up the music. Yeah, Drew got it. Thanks, mate. So Drew is also Adobe XD ambassador. Make sure to head on over to check him out. This component is going to be huge. You are going to see it. So once I actually collect all of them in just a second. But before I do, I'm going to hide myself and I'm going to crank up the music just a little bit so you can enjoy it and I can go back to work. Okay, and now that that is completed, let's quickly check if everything works as it should, because you saw there are a bunch of these different components, so hopefully it works. So let's check glacier, mint, oak, wine, royal. And if I switch between them, I think they work just fine. Midnight. Yeah, so everything works as it should. Thank God, because you saw how long this took, and it is going to be huge because now I have to deal with components as well. Sorry, the angles as well. So let's now switch to that, and I'm going to hide my colors altogether, like so. I'm going to show my angles like this, and first things first, I'm going to hide all of them like I did, and I need my navigator like this, and that's why we are going to need the left and right tab points. Hopefully you got it for now, that when you click right it's going to switch, when you click left it's going to switch and go all the way down into circle. And of course, because we have let me check, 16 different angles, we are going to need to create 16 different component states. So you get the whole point. Why is this taking so much time? And we are at 1 hour 34 minutes already. So let's now crack on with the work. So first things first, I'm going to actually jump inside and put my navigator. Let's see where I can put it on top, right here. Then I can group these two and call them angles. Like this. And I'm going to leave the floor ellipse outside of everything because I just wanted to keep it nice and clean. Of course, what you can do is include animated icons here in place of these arrows if you want to. So every time when you hover, it's going to switch that, but I think that can be quite annoying for your users from time to time. So perhaps weigh in, and when you're doing your user testing with your users, make sure to ask them all of these questions. Do you find that annoying? Do you find this, let's say, first edition text at the bottom annoying? Should it be gone out of your way basically to just focus on the car, on the product in question, or should it be there? This exit configurator at the top left, maybe you should put the back arrow animating there. So just keep all of these things in mind when you're designing your users, and are they going to be annoyed or not? So let's now deal with that. Now that we have angles, I'm going to hit Control K. Just let me check with music. It works. Okay. And now let's start with our angles. So default state is going to be this one. So just keep in mind, it's going to be number 1 for the default state. So what I can do is show new state, just call it 2. Jump inside our angles, hide this, show this, continue, 3, angles, show this, hide this, and continue. So let me switch to 3, now go to 4. And you're noticing I'm not going back to the default state, I'm simply continuing where I left off previously, because it's much easier that way. And it's going to make much more sense. So number 5, angles. And just another reminder, if you want to use this car in your projects, you have to license it on Envato Elements. Otherwise, you're going to breach their rules. So you can use it for learning purposes with this practice file. But if you want to use it in your portfolio, if you want to use it in your client work, then sadly, you have to join Elements and you have to license it, because that's what I did. And that's why I'm able to show this to you guys. Because these 3D models are not yet available in XD. Hopefully they are going to be in the future, because I keep in my fingers crossed. I love to use 3D and I love to explore with 3D possibilities. So hopefully at some point we are going to have full 3D, at least integration with some plugin or something outside of native environment of XD, so that we can use something like OBJ files or something like that. For now, we have to deal with these, and sadly, that's why it's taking so much time. Let's go to angles, number 12, there we go. Now let's go with 13. 14. Like this. 15. We're almost at the end. Of course, what you can do is you can create just a few of these different says. You don't have to create 16 of them like I did. So what you can create is, let's say, front, 3/4, from the side, from the back, and there we go. So maybe 5 or 6 different angles. And now that all of this is completed, you see where this is going. We have to use those tap points. So if I go back to my default state and go back to my navigator, you can see we have left tap point, we have the right tap point, and we have to click on each of them and to connect all of them without any delay. So using the same settings that Adobe XD remembered from the previous component and component states that we created, and just basically go round and round in circles. If I switch to component state 16, so let's wait for XD to do its saving, switch to 16, which is this one, and switch to default, which is this one. Obviously I did this because when you start rotating the car, it's going to go to that 16, and number 1, it's obviously going to be next. So you're going to see in just a second when I start prototyping, and I'm going to crank up the music once again a bit so that you don't get bored too much. When you go to 16, you're going to click the right arrow, it's going to take you to number 1. So you can achieve that full circle look, and you don't have to go and snap it back or go to number 1 or click whatever else. It's just going to feel natural. So let's get started. So first things first, I'm at the default state, and I'm going to, let's see, use my navigator, left tap point. What I can do is switch to prototype, click, and then I'm going to choose the destination 16, and right tap point, I'm going to choose the destination number 2. So you get the whole point. We are going to use those same settings. So once again, tap, auto animate, easing none. So we want to go with that immediate effect, and duration 0. So it just snaps into the next one. So number 2, for this one, I'm going to select my navigator, left tap point, there we go, and go back to the default state. And this is going to go to the next one. So number 3. And let me actually crank up the music so you can focus on that while I start working. Cam Joseph says, this is awesome. Thanks, man. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. And let me crank the music so I can get back to work. Okay, and now that we reached state number 16, which took ages obviously, let's go to here. So once again, because we are 16, this previous one is going to take us to 15, and this next one is going to take us to number 1. So if we click right here, this is going to go to 15, and this right tap point is going to take us to 1, so default state. And if I switch to my default state, let me check once again. So navigator left, this should go to 16. It does. This should go to number 2. And now let's check it out. Let's see what we have created so far. So if I open it up here, if I click on these arrows, you can see without any delay, everything is moving as it should, like so. So once again, you can have, for example, this angle from the front, this 3/4, let's say, this one from the side, this one from the back, and basically that's it if you don't want to bother with too many of these states. Now that all of that is completed, comes that master component, which is going to be huge with all of these elements in place. That's why we created the navigator tap point, colors tap point, trim tap point, and wheels tap point, because now comes the time for us to create this massive component. Let me check the chat real quick. Watching live from Nigeria. Glad to have you here watching from Nigeria. Thank you everybody for watching. We are at 1 hour 46 minutes, so hopefully we are going to get through 2 hours without any issues. So let me switch back to my original file and see how I named it, car configurator. So let's do that. So first things first, I'm going to bring them all back, so it's going to be just a total mess. And I'm going to select everything from the side menu all the way down to the floor ellipse, hit Ctrl G, call it car configurator, like this, and hit Ctrl K. So now we have this massive default state and this main component, and we have all of these components with their component states. This is what's called nesting of components. So basically when you have components inside of components, you can do this as many times as you want. But obviously here we are going to have to make few changes obviously to these, because you saw how many of these appear out of nowhere, because all of them are at their default states. So we are going to deal with them in just a second. So for our default state, what we need to do is edit all of them down. So first of all, let's select the wheels, for example, and I'm going to use the wheels selector, and I'm going to bring it back to 30%. Well, let's go with, I think 40 was it? I honestly don't remember now, so let's switch. Let's go with 30%. Not to take any more time. And sorry if you hear any noise in the background, it's just some neighbors right here. So we have the wheels lowered down in opacity. Then I want to go to exterior trim and do the same for here, and remove the border, because none of these are selected in the default state. Then for the color selector, I'm going to do the same here. So 30%, remove the border. There we go, like so. And now what I have to do is obviously just have the angles visible. So I'm going to have this at default state. So number 1 is visible. Now let's deal with all of these other ones. So for the wheels, what I want is wheel selector to stay, but I want my wheels to be hidden. And I also want my wheel options to be hidden, which are these images of the car, obviously. Then exterior trim selector should be visible, exterior trim not visible, and trim images not visible. Then for the colors, we just need the color selector to be visible. Colors and car color image should not be visible, like this. So basically that's it. All we are left with in this default state of car configurator master component are our angles and these selectors right here, but they are just there for the show, because once again, remember, we have colors, tap point, and wheels and trim to take us to those different components. So now what we're going to do is create just those. So let's start with creating, let's say, colors, like this. So when we go to colors, obviously we are going to hide the angles now, and we are going to go into colors and bring this back. Then I'm going to create another component from here and call it trim. Inside of the trim, same story. So hide the angles and go to the exterior trim and show these two options. And finally, go back to the default state, new state, and call this one wheels, like this. And you see where this is going. So let's hide our angles and let's go inside of our wheels. There we go, show those. And now all of that is completed. So we have default state, we have colors, we have the trim, and we have the wheels, but for some reason this selector is disappearing. So let's bring it back. So go to colors. Instead of removing the visibility of our angles, I'm going to just remove from our images and leave the navigator back in. Then I'm going to go to the trim and do the same thing. So bring our angles back and hide our angles images and just leave the navigator in. And finally do the same for the wheels. So bring the angles back, hide the angles, show the navigator, and there we go. So when I go back to the default state, what I need to do now is obviously prototype them. So how can I do that? So we are in a default state and I'm going to go to my color step point, for example, switch to prototype, click, and it is going to take me to colors. This is the main reason why we are using these tap points, because if you clicked the color in the first place, it's just going to take you to that inner component, because if you remember, colors have their own components and they're all wired up together. So that's why we need to have these tap points in order to basically override that main component option of them and go inside deep to their components when we have these tap points. So let's deal with all of them now. So these are colors. If I select this one, click on it and choose trim and select wheels, go to the wheels like so. Now if I go back to colors, do the same thing, but now when I click the navigator tap point, it is going to take me to the default state, because inside of the default state obviously we are going to be able to rotate all of these around. Colors tap point, I'm going to go to colors are there, so they are selected. Trim, and I'm noticing that I should be bringing back these, so let's do that in just a second. But let's now animate these and connect them properly. So trim, let's do that. So navigator, it's going to take us to the default state. Colors are going to take us to colors, and wheels are going to take us back to wheels. Finally, let's switch to wheels. Navigator taking us back to the default state, colors to colors, and trim to trim. Before we preview, let's switch back to design. Let's go back to default state. Let's switch to colors, and here we should have this. So colors, color selector, it should be at 100 and it should show the border color. Then if we switch to trim, we should go back to exterior trim, trim selector, switch this to 100 and bring the border back. And finally, if we switch this to wheels, you get the whole point. So wheels, wheel selector, bring this to 100, show our border. And finally, let's bring back the default state. And now, moment of truth, hopefully everything is going to work as it should. And now we are at exterior configurator. And if I start switching our arrows left and right, so you can go in either direction, wherever you want. And this is where we are going to stop. If I click the colors, it is going to show us the colors. Obviously, this shadow is going to be thicker than before, because as I mentioned, when I cut it, it just show up like that. But crucially, when I click here and through all of these, everything works as it should. So now if I switch to trim, everything works in trim as well. And if I switch to wheels, start sport and start between them, if I click here, then here, if I go back, it's going to keep the same settings. So just make sure to pay attention to go back to the default state. So once again, all of the colors work. the trim works, the wheels work, and when I click here, it's going to exit out and go back to this preview mode. So now we can rotate it one more time all the way around and preview our car. Finally, when I click on any one of these, contact sales, and we talked about this, if you want to put the links back in, book a test drive, and obviously this exit configurator here is there because you're going to get to this page from the home page of this website, for example, so you have to have the option to exit this configurator option page. Finally, hover, click view summary, it's going to fly into place, and then we have continue to payment working correctly, say specification, obviously you can create your profile on this website, let's say, and view summary. So actually we should say something like back to configurator here. So when you click, it's going to take you to this page. So let's do that and finish off this design. So I'm going to double click and call it back to configurator. Select it, switch to the hover state and paste that text in, switch back to our default state, enter, and view summary. Hover back to configurator, and it's going to take us back to here. Obviously, as I said, you can create the interior configurator if you want to, but I didn't have the time to create it, and obviously we are just shy of 2 hours for this particular live stream, so you can just imagine how much time that's going to take us. But you can apply exactly the same settings, so do the same thing like I did for the colors, and let's say interior, you can select, let's say, stitching, you can select the seat color, you can select the cloth color, you can maybe add additional options and just add the pricings down below for those options. When you switch to interior configurator, instead of colors, trim and wheels, it's going to say something like stitching, seat colors, or let's say something like leathers or fabrics of the seats or something like that. And then of course you can go even further and use the technology. So for example, this car by default has a 10-inch screen. Maybe you can add additional option to go to 20-inch or I don't know, 15-inch or whatever, and then maybe you can add additional packs, like let's say it's going to have the night vision option by default or not, and then you can select. You get the whole point. So you can go really deep into this and you can explore all sorts of different possibilities, but for now I think we are good to go, and you can see me from here. So let me switch to this side just so that you can see this button. So when you hit view summary, here is the first edition. So we said interior Santa Monica included. So this is just a default interior. Let me hide myself so you can see it better. So this is just a default interior, but obviously if you add additional interior colors, what you can do is make this image a bit smaller and then put the interior image right here on the right hand side, and then expand this and then add additional interior items like I mentioned, like for example that 10-inch screen or those options for the seats and whatever else you want. But basically that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining me in today's live stream. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Usman feels motivated, and I'm glad to see that you are motivated. Thank you so much for watching and for sticking with me for almost 2 hours. We are at 1:58 now. Thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. And just for the end, if you're watching this on Behance, make sure to head on over to my YouTube channel, which is Alex on Design. I upload content there all about Adobe XD every single week. Then make sure to head on over to my website, which is alexondesign.co, if you want to check out my courses, digital design products, private access to my Facebook group, and practice files for all my YouTube tutorials, including something like this. But for now, I'm doing this as part of my Adobe XD Ambassador enrollment program, and I want to give you guys a few of these files in the next few tutorials, which I'm going to do. Finally, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to head on over to Behance and follow me. It's behance.com web donut. And final plug for the day is Inception Design System. If you are at Behance already, make sure to head on over to that Inception Design System presentation page to check it out if you are interested. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Thank you, Drew. Drew says, nice work. Thank you so much, man, and hopefully to see you in forums and in the chats. And if you want, you can head on over to Adobe XD Discord. I don't have the link right here right now, but I'm going to prepare one for the future, and you can join there if you want to be in the loop about Adobe XD community and about what designers in the community are doing. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, we are just sticking over 2 hours, so I just want to ramble a bit on to head on over to that 2 hours. And this was the longest live stream I've done so far, but we are going to have a longer one in the future. And just the final one before I sign off. If you're watching this on YouTube later, chapters are going to be included, but just give me a day, like tomorrow or something like that, because YouTube has this thing where they have to load the live stream, then they have to progress it, process it, and do all of these things before I'm able to add the chapters. So just stick with me until tomorrow, and I'm going to add the chapters. And let's check the chat one more time. Thank you, Usman. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.